Good evening, Hall of Fame Dynasty members. We are officially halfway through the NHL season for our league, but before I get too far into hockey, I just want to say congratulations, Jared, and congratulations to Chris on making it to the football playoff or football championship this week. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that later this week on the NFL preview show. And that was one hell of a week, I gotta say. As frustrated as I got with my team, it was a lot of people that ended up dealing with the same thing of players not performing, and kind of like we talked about in the chat the other day, this was the second lowest scoring week 15 in the past 9 years, which is crazy. And it was interesting, I mean, to say the least. And especially when it comes to this championship game in football, who knows who's going to win, because I know Chris says anything can happen, and that's very true. Now, whether it happens or not, we'll see. It's going to be fun, but I don't want to dive too much into that tonight, as we are talking hockey. We are talking puck into twine, scoring goals, all those kinds of things. But this last week was actually really interesting, and because we are officially into week 12, we are halfway through the season. We've seen a lot of movement, and we are finally starting to see some people really kind of move away from the rest of the pack. I mean, obviously, we knew the Rangers were going to be kind of bad because of the fact they traded away a bunch of their top picks, especially the number one overall pick, which was not expected, especially for the return that he got. But Tampa Bay Lightning and the LA Kings are kind of sitting on the outside looking in right now. The playoffs right now are pretty much set just the way it is. I mean, we've got a lot to say, and especially Nashville, you're on the outside looking in right now, but at 4-7, you've actually started to have some really good luck for the most part come your way. And we'll kind of delve into that when we get to it. So why don't we kind of look over, since it is the halfway point, I do want to do something fun and go through some of the interesting stat category leaders, especially with us being halfway through. I know it'll end up coming down to the wire with records at the end of the year. So why don't we kind of get into some of the different things that we've seen in this first half of the year. Obviously, we had the Rockies, and Jared dropped the first 400-point burger on anyone. And unfortunately, it was on the Minnesota Wild. They will be the first game I talk about tonight, because it was it was rough, especially when you score 360-something points in this league, you should win. Unfortunately, the Minnesota Twins' bad luck continues this season, and he got to face the Rockies when they were just going off and off and off. So some interesting stats that I found while kind of digging around with the league and looking into the standings and kind of seeing how everyone sits. Right now, the Ducks actually lead the league in goals, and they don't have 788 goals. They have 788 points, fantasy points from goals. And Colorado's obviously in second. The Ducks hold the lead by 24 points when I looked last night. And then, obviously, Keith and his Avalanche lead in assists with 1,008 points, which is crazy, considering that assists are about, I think their 3 points and goals are worth 4. Chicago Blackhawks are in second when it comes to assists. The Rangers actually have the lowest penalty minutes in the league by about 40. Second is Tampa. They have the second lowest. And I think a lot of that is actually due to the fact that obviously Victor doesn't set his lineups. I don't know if he does for basketball, but obviously the less players you have play, the less likely you are to get penalty minutes. So that always helps. It is what it is. He's only had 155 points taken away through penalty minutes. The Avalanche actually lead the league in shots on goal with 666.8 points. I come in second place in that category. And I think right here is something interesting to look at, the fact that it's 666. It shows that Keith is obviously using some of that devil magic, the fact that it looks like he's going to make the playoffs in all 4 leagues in the first year. He did mention a use of voodoo doll, so I think we're kind of seeing the connection of how all this is coming together and why exactly he's been just so good. We may have to. I know I just wrote the rule book recently, but we may have to put in a voodoo or religion clause in there just to make sure that there's no funny business going on. I'm looking at you, Keith. Trust me, I'm keeping an eye on you. Don't worry. And then when it comes to game-winning goals, I was actually pretty surprised that the Minnesota Wild lead this category with 72 going into today. Anaheim is in second with 68. I kind of was surprised by that. Just the fact of, obviously it's a little bit of a random stat. If you happen to get the opportunity for the game-winning goal, you obviously are trailing at some point. You are tied going into it, whether it's overtime, whatever it is. But 72 points from the Wild through game-winning goals, pretty interesting. My Blackhawks lead in hits with 325 points on hits. Colorado is right in second place. Obviously, with the way that this league has gone, Anaheim, Colorado, Minnesota, and myself are going to be in a lot of these with just how competitive we've been. I was very surprised that we didn't see the Golden Knights show up until the 15 hat tricks and the over 300 goalie points so far this year. The fact that Golden Knights didn't show up really in the top 3 or top 2 of most of these categories was surprising, considering goalies don't really score a whole lot in our league. They aren't as important, at least in my mind. The 15 hat tricks, or 15 points on hat tricks, was pretty interesting. We may have to end up changing that scoring next year when it comes to it, because I believe hat tricks are only an extra point. We may make it more. But 15 points on hat tricks, Colorado's in second place, and I think he was about 3 points behind. So that was interesting to see. It was a lot of fun looking into the stats and just seeing how this league has played out. And something I do want to do that I am doing off the top of my head right now, I don't have a slide for this. I apologize. But points for and points against is always very interesting. Obviously, Colorado leads in points for with 3,647, and they have about a almost 1,000 point difference in fantasy points against. The Ducks trail them by about 150 points in points for, and Tampa Bay Lightning and New York Rangers and LA Kings are obviously in the bottom 3. The Rangers are expected to be with them not really putting an emphasis on hockey in these leagues. Tampa and LA wasn't surprising due to the fact that we kept having owners disappear in the first few months, but those teams are getting on track. And surprisingly, the team that leads in fantasy points against is myself at almost 3,300 right now. Mac is right behind me at 140. 3,162, so he's almost about 130 behind me. And the LA Kings, 3,032 points against them. They've had one of the tougher schedules. It's always really interesting to see, but really, when it comes down to it, the difference between myself and the Avalanche, who have had the easiest schedule so far, is only about 500 points. And that's, I mean, obviously nobody's dropped a 500-point week yet. But if it happens, it's going to be crazy. We'll kind of get into it when we get into the 400 points dropped by Colorado. But this league is actually really close, even though we see some very lopsided scores at times. Anything can really happen. And I just want to remind you guys that, because it's crazy just how close this league has been, regardless of what records say. And when we're talking about records, why don't we get into the record that the Colorado Avalanche set with 447.6 points this last week. They obviously moved on to 10-1 with one loss on the season. And unfortunately, that's another loss added to the loss column for the Minnesota Wild, even though they put up 367.7 points. Maybe if he would have gotten the 777 in there to combat Keith's 666 on the year, maybe he would have had a better chance. But there wasn't a whole lot that the Wild could do. 418 points out of the Colorado Avalanche skaters. It's a lot of it wasn't even goals, which really surprised me. The 51 assists that you can see, insane. It's there's not a whole lot that can really be said about it. The fact that obviously, yeah, you're hoping for more goal production because of the fact that they are worth more. Assists are easier to get. So 51 assists on the week. That's where a lot of his points came from. And the crazy thing is he had 52 penalty minutes, and a lot of it did come from Max Domi, if I remember, as I pull it up here. Let me just keep talking. But 52 penalty minutes, and it is half a point for every minute. So a regular 2-minute penalty does take away 1 full point from your score. He would have ended up at 470 points almost had it not been for the inconsistent discipline with his team, which I didn't believe anyone would actually break 400 points this year. I know we've been fairly close, and let me mute that. Anyway, sorry about that. 52 penalty minutes, he would have broken 450, and it's unbelievable. 25 power play points. That's got to be a record. That's something I'll have to look at. 1 hat trick, and that was by Alexander Barkov. And he also had 63 blocks, which are very good. And sorry about that. I know there's trade talk going on, so I just wanted to respond to this real quick. 63 blocks. Great week for the defense there. Minnesota Wild, 339 points, nothing to sneeze at. 21 goals. Obviously, the 21 differential in assists between these two teams made a big difference. Only 20 penalty minutes, which is great for Minnesota. That means only 10 points was taken away from their potential score. 18 power play points, 48 blocks. Not a whole lot to really say about that. And I can't believe it. And it's funny because Colorado didn't even have the 3 highest scores on the week. They only had 1 that appeared in the top 3 here. It was just really consistent play out of the entire Avalanche team. Obviously, Rasmus Ristolainen with 38.4 points for Minnesota. Damn it, I did it again. Okay, actually, Mikko Rantanen had the highest score with 41 points for Colorado. You had Nathan McKinnon, who put up 37.3 points for Colorado, and Leon Draisaitl would have end up being the 4th star on the week with 33.7 points. Like I said, even Max Domi had 10 penalty minutes on the week. Obviously, he was the only player to go negative in this matchup, but the Avalanche were carried by Mikko Rantanen, which is great. Obviously, they are a Colorado fan. We know this. The fact that he could have a hometown guy like that do what he did was huge. So let's move on to the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know Steve has been fairly busy. He's been trying to figure out what to do with this team. Injuries have kind of taken over as well. Obviously, if you're not healthy enough to stay on the ice, you're not going to get the minutes you need. But Vegas continues their streak as they move up to 7-4. The Tampa Bay Lightning fall 1-10, almost a 200-point difference. There's not a whole lot I can really say on this one. There was 42 starts for the Tampa Bay Lightning. 28 start difference is always going to make a big difference in the week like that. You've got 360 points out of the skaters with Vegas, and the thing they really struggled with this week, as you can see, is they only had 19 points from goalies, whereas last week I believe they were over 30. 19 goals on the week, 40 assists, 133 shots on goal. I didn't talk about that much in the last matchup. I just kind of wanted to point out that 133 shots to 81, obviously not worth a lot, but it leads to those opportunities, to finding the goal, to getting it to your, even if you get the banks off or the rebounds off the goalie, you have those opportunities provided to your players. I actually thought 6 game-winning goals was fairly high. That's a surprise. I mean, you're essentially getting 1 game-winning goal a night, some extra points to your players. 16 power play points for the Vegas compared to only 6 for Tampa Bay. And it's funny, once again, Tampa Bay has a decent player in Gabriel Landeskog for Colorado, and they put up 38.3 points, but everyone else on the team kind of failed, as you had You had Andreas Johnson from Toronto only put up half a point. You had Fiala from Nashville only put up -3. Oscar Clefboom only put up 2. Lindholm for the Anaheim Ducks only put up 4.5. It was just a rough week for Tampa Bay all over. Obviously, Jeff Skinner and Mark Giordano got it done. Blue liner Mark Giordano put up 32.5 points. Excellent week for a defenseman. It's very hard to get that many points on a consistent basis, considering that even with guys like Giordano or Yossi or some of these younger guys that are blue liners, you don't always get that offensive production. It's similar, in my mind at least, like the catcher position in fantasy baseball. You don't always find those types of guys, but when you do, they are such a big help to your team. And Giordano with 32.5 points on the week. Excellent third star for the Vegas Knights. Why don't we move on? Obviously, another slaughter here. Like I said, the New York Rangers haven't paid much attention to their hockey team, nor did I expect them to. The Ducks continue to cruise to another win. This is a bye week for them, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this one, obviously, with the slaughter. 378 points out of the Ducks skaters compared to 166 points for the Rangers. Doubled the goals, doubled the assists, 4 more game-winning goals, bunch more power play points, and it was 67 starts to 39 starts. Not a whole lot to say. Really, there's a lot. The problem with the Rangers, obviously Duchesne for the Ottawa Senators is out. Jordan Staal for Carolina put up a goose egg as well. I really think the Rangers could find a way to get back in the game if they decide to use some of their players from NBA or even from NFL, if they wanted to move some of their Patriots and try and boost up their stock. Even if they went for some real high prospects, they currently have 0 prospects on their roster. So I think collecting those would probably be best for Victor and his Rangers. The 20.6 goalie points was an excellent week for him. I will give him that bright spot. He's had some production. He had production out of almost every spot except the center spot this week. And even if he did have a collection of Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, and let's say, I don't know, even if he went with Jack Eichel, that the Anaheim Ducks, even if he somehow had all 3 of those centers, it wouldn't have been enough. Obviously, as you see with the 3 stars of the week, you had Mark. I can never figure out how to say his name. I want to say it's Mark Scheifele or Scheifele. I can't say that I watch a whole lot of Winnipeg Jets games. It's hard for me to really want to. I love their team. They are very young, very good, but it's not a team that I really reach out and watch. I would say probably the Toronto Maple Leafs outside of the Blackhawks. The Maple Leafs and the Lightning are 2 of my favorite teams to watch. But obviously, he did very well with 56 points. Jack Eichel with 52.7 points for the Buffalo Sabres. And Connor McDavid, 35.3 points. The center was a very dominant position for the Ducks this week. We've seen them get a lot of production out of the wingers at times, and they were there as well. But the center position was just so dominant for them. You had Jack Eichel with 5 goals and 4 assists. Connor McDavid had 3 goals and 5 assists. They did literally everything that they could to power the Ducks to a win in this game when they really didn't have to try all that hard because it's Victor. We know it. So we'll move on to my team. This one actually came down to the very last day, and it was really I was sweating. I was sweating this whole week because of the fact that from day one, the LA Kings kept right up with me up until Sunday. And we'll kind of dig into it here. Obviously, I jumped up to 6-5 with this 30-point win. LA Kings fall to 3-8. They've got a great team really around them though, and when it comes to me sweating it out, it really came up to Sunday where it was 11 starts to 8. I was able to get it was 48 to 36.8 on the final day, which made a big difference. If I had Steven Stamkos and Braden Point put up almost 12 points both on the last day, without them, I wouldn't have done it. I would have probably dropped this game and fallen to 5-6 with the Minnesota Wild, but the LA Kings almost with their first 300-point week of the year, I believe. I will double check that. But excellent week for them. Why don't we dig into the stats here for a second? 304 points out of my skaters compared to the LA Kings 279. Super close. Obviously, I trailed more in the goalie department, or he trailed a little bit in the goalie department as well with 31-20. But a lot of it really hurt that Patrice Bergeron has been missing along with Patrick Hornqvist for the LA Kings. I think once both of those players come back, we could easily see the LA Kings jump up over 300 points each. And they're going to be a dominant force. And what it really comes down to is health. And a lot of it, obviously, we both had 18 goals to 16 goals, 29 assists to 21. Close in each of these categories. It ended up making the difference. 14 power play points for both of us. He had 2 hat tricks. Both of them came from Ovechkin, who was absolutely on fire. He's kind of slowed down over the last couple of games, of course. It's impossible to put a hat trick up every single night, but Ovechkin's doing what he's doing at, I think, age 34. He is blowing it for the left wing position. He's just everything he can for that Washington Capitals team. The biggest difference really came down to the hits and the blocks, where I had 2 more hits, 9 more blocks, almost 40 more faceoffs. One really was the difference, and the one goalie win as well made the difference in this matchup. Alex Ovechkin, 45.8 points. Dustin Byfuglien, defenseman, 37.6, and I believe most of those points actually came against my Blackhawks in real life on a Monday or Tuesday night, where I think was the only point at which I trailed, but it was a close matchup all week. Really came down to the last day, and Steven Stamkos, as right winger, put up 33 points for my Blackhawks. I got to give you a lot of credit, Chris. It was a hell of a week. I really like what you're doing. You've got a great team. Once again, health barring, you'll be right in the playoffs. There's still 10 weeks to go. And this is the one that really surprised me. I thought it was a 1-point win for Sean. It ended up coming down to less, as the Nashville Predators dropped this game and dropped to 4-7, whereas the Carolina Hurricanes somehow pull this game out, 7-4 now. 0.4 points. This is heartbreaking. Honestly, I thought Kevin had this one. I really did, especially going into the last day. I thought he had enough to overthrow Sean. Unfortunately, he just didn't, and I'm going to pull it up as I kind of talk here, but 277.4 points for Kevin Skaters compared to 276.6 points for Sean. Tied in goals, 1 more assist for the Nashville Preds. And here's kind of where the difference got made. And it was really lucky for Sean, was the 3 game-winning goals to 1. 1 less game-winning goal and he loses. Even the 77 hits to 45, or 77 to 70 hits, blocks obviously 45 to 43. This was just so close. This is the closest matchup we've had. I don't know if we can get any closer than 0.4 points, but the fact that you take away 2 hits from Sean, or take away 1 block from Sean, or even 1 more game-winning goal from Kevin, and you literally have this game flipped. I couldn't believe it when I saw that Kevin lost. I thought he had it in the bag, and I apologize, Kevin, but that was one hell of a week. You made it entertaining, and I feel like this game sadly got overlooked because of what we had going on in the fantasy football playoffs, between Chris upsetting me and Jared actually finally upsetting Keith. That was huge, and unfortunately, this game got lost in the shuffle. I mean, you had really great performances as well. You had the right winger, Sebastian Aho, for the Carolina Hurricanes, put up 45 points. You had Blake Wheeler for Nashville put up 34.9 points, and his blue liner, Jake Muzzin, put up 32.3. It really was crazy to me that especially in fantasy hockey, points leagues, usually somebody has the clear dominant advantage most of the week, or ends up getting it those last 2 days. For really to come down to something like this with the puck bouncing around the ice, it blew my mind. I'm I got to say congrats. This is probably going to be the best matchup of the year until we get to the playoffs. There's really no topping this just because so little could have made such a big difference. But that was one hell of a matchup, guys. Congrats to Sean on the win. Kevin, you're right there, man. You have been such a sleeper team all year. You gave me a run, and I think you actually beat me when we last faced off. Keep on grinding, keep at it, because damn, you are so close to jumping right into the mix with everyone else. So since it is week 12, I actually really like that we've added this. It kind of makes it fun since it's hard to say who's going to win each matchup or really dive into it, because if you don't set your lineup, it really throws everything out of whack. But we've got some great matchups this week. So we have the Anaheim Ducks and Nashville Predators. And like I said, I don't mean to make it sound like it's a bad thing, but you're a sleeper team, Kevin, and you've really surprised a lot of the league just because of the fact that you look at your record and it looks like you're having a bad year, but your team is right up there in terms of scoring. You are, I think you're 5th in scoring, so it's really not bad. Unfortunately, just the way the Ducks have been playing, give me the Ducks this week. I think it's going to be a much closer matchup. At some point, the Ducks are going to have to slow down, and as I speak, it is 52-40 right now. It is a very close matchup. I think I'm going to go with the Ducks this week, just the way that they've been performing and almost getting a 400-point week again. They've been so close to it every week, or not every week, but the last few. They've been one of the hotter teams. Give me the Ducks. Now, Carolina Hurricanes versus Tampa Bay Lightning. I wanted to take the Lightning. I think they've got a good team. Unfortunately, Steve hasn't been setting his lineups recently. So give me Sean. As much as I don't want to give him the win, I think I will. And I see that, Kevin. You go get him. You take him down. Make it fun for the rest of the league. Although the problem is that you would have to rely on myself to go along with that, because if you can beat the Ducks, I would need to beat the Colorado Avalanche and Keith this week to try and keep it competitive so we don't have him run away in another league like he did with baseball. And unfortunately, I was able to keep at it in football and keep him from getting the top seed. But at this point, somebody has to knock him off his high horse. I don't think I can do it. I do lead at this current point, but after trash talking Chris this last week, I don't want to say anything and screw myself over, so I'm giving Keith the win. Let's go with the reverse juju. So I'm taking Keith in the win. I'm hoping it kind of works in a voodoo way here. And we've got the LA Kings taking on the Rangers. I think we all know who's going to win this one. Obviously, Kings have a much better team than the Rangers. They actually set their lineup. Give me LA in a very easy matchup. Now, this is the game of the week for me, and a lot of it is obviously divisional game. Obviously, Chris is riding high on his football win. He's riding high on the fact that he leads the division, even though he is tied with the Carolina Hurricanes. And I think it's going to be very interesting. I want to take the Wild. I really do. He's had a great team, and it's the fact that Vegas has just been playing really, really well. They've got a 28-point lead, 70 points to 42 points right now. Give me the Vegas Golden Knights. As much as I hate to see Mac kind of fail out on this one and not get the upset, I'm going with Vegas. I think the Wild still have a great chance. He's going to need a little bit of help from the Vegas Knights slowing down. And the funny thing is, in this matchup, they are only separated by about 70 points on the season in points for. So as it looks right now, the Vegas Knights should be a very close matchup. It all comes down to whether the teams perform. Obviously, Vegas has been riding high. I'm looking right now, and I do believe they are on a win streak. They currently have won. Okay, they just started a win streak again. And the team with the longest win streak, I think we can all take a guess, Colorado Avalanche, 6 wins in a row. The Anaheim Mighty Ducks are right behind them with 4. I want to see Kevin upset that, though, and I'm hoping I can upset the Colorado Avalanche, bring them back down with the rest of the league, make this fun, make it a muck, make it a messy second half of the season. So I want to say congratulations to all you guys on everything we've done this year. It's been a blast. I want to say thank you. It's been a bunch of fun. And with the way that we've conducted it, I think we've got a great group of people here. You guys have been amazing. Obviously, keep going at it. You can't ever give up with the fact that, like I said, the Wild look like they're in a bad position, but they're the 5th highest scoring team on the year. They have the 2nd hardest schedule on the year. Just keep grinding, guys. We've got a lot to go, and we do have a plan for the beginning of the year, and I do like Sean's idea. We, as commissioners, him and I will be putting together a review show, and I think that's something we may do every year instead of doing individual awards for each sport, kind of like how we did earlier this year. We may still do the votes when it comes down to it, but doing even a wrap-up show, I kind of want to see what your guys' thoughts are. If you guys have any comments, I want to know, because this league is not just about Sean and I running it. This is about you guys. You guys are just as active as we are. You guys put in just as much time and work. You guys make it fun, whether it's all the breaking news of injuries, whether it's trades, whether it's just the lighthearted discussions or the trash talk. You guys make this fun. It's probably the most active league I've been in. I consider this my home league now, with the fact that I've been in a league that's run longer, but I don't feel like it's as active, it's as fun as you guys are. So thank you for everything. If you guys have any comments, if you guys want to jump in, I'm glad to have you guys either host your own show if you guys want to do this, whatever it is. And it'll be a lot of fun. Congrats on week 12. We've gotten this far. We've got 9 weeks after this. We go up until week 21, and we do have our trade deadline coming up. I will be posting it in the Slack. So good luck. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys, and it's going to be fun. I will see you Friday for our NFL preview show of the championship game. I'm going to have some fun with this one because only one matchup on the week. We've got a lot to do. There's a lot to look into, and I've got to do my research. I might actually take a stab and try and guess what the final score will be. And that's it. I will talk to you guys later this week. Have a good night.